September 21st, 2020. Approval of the agenda. Councilor Roberry.
That the Monday, September 21st, 2020 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Howell. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes. 3.1 June 22nd, 2020 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation. Councilor Lehman.
That the minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councilor Wojcinski. All in favor? Any business arising from the minutes? Anything from staff? Move on to petitions and delegations, TRD Society. Sherry Cosgrove. Welcome.
Hello.
Floor is yours.
Okay, basically, I was called to council tonight to maybe answer some questions. So when I was here, I thought it'd be a good chance to bring our first set of renderings for the fairgrounds. As you can see in your pamphlet there I handed out, we have the first drawings for the stage and for the pavilion. And those will be started as soon as it thaws. Spring, we plan to break ground. Our fence is going to be finished next month. We're going to be starting, and it should take about 5 days to finish the fence up there. So, yeah. The main issue, I guess, tonight is the building on the property.
Okay, from council side. Councilor Howell.
So, do you guys have funds in place to do these buildings yet?
Yes.
Like this is the NDIT grant that we're talking about?
Yeah. Our stage and the pavilion and the fence are coming in at $280,000, and that's all in taxes, concrete, everything.
And what are the dimensions on this?
Both the stage and the pavilion will be 30 by 40. And the stage will be 4 feet off the ground.
Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This electrical upgrade, now supposedly switching it from 480 to 600, it's just a matter of a transformer, which is between $5,000 and $10,000. Now, I don't know if they're talking about changing all the wiring on the interior of that building.
This is all, I certainly don't know. I'm not an electrician. I don't know anything about this. When we signed the lease for the property, we were told that it already had electric. All we needed to do was it needed to be hooked up with BC Hydro. And that was in our lease that the district would pay for that. And I guess nobody checked the building. Nobody knew. I'm not sure.
So I just got one question back to staff first. It's just because the drawings just came in today. Is there going to be is this going to go back to a regular meeting for approval for their requirements for location of the stage? Because I believe that was in their contract too, that council had to approve with that lease that they have in regards to that. Is my understanding with their lease has come back before council to be voted on in regards to the stage or whatever they're building at the grounds.
Anything that they would be doing would need to be approved by council, yes.
So is this going to come back to a regular meeting for approval in regards to the stage and the pavilion that she's mentioned here? I just see the drawings and they're hard to see. I mean, I see the pictures, which is great. Appreciate the pictures, but so it come back in a later meeting? Okay. Councilor Howe?
Yeah, so that was exactly my understanding, Terry, as well, is that we were required to provide power to the building, and the way I understood it, there already was power underground, and then we needed to then tie into that to get you guys power to that building. So I have a real problem with moving this building and the costs associated around it. We're talking about spending $90,000 to move a building that, in my mind, should be sold and take the money rather than spend $90,000 of that. Give you guys that type of cash to do what you want to do with it, to build a purpose-built building that suits your needs better, rather than putting a $90,000 lipstick on a pig is the phrase I like to use, because that is a temporary build. That's what it is designed for. It's designed to go on tractor trailers, get loaded up, hauled around all over the place. And we are under the same understanding, and that's a problem that I have, is because I never agreed as a councillor that TR Days Society would sign this lease, that we were going to spend $90,000 to move this building, $60,000 on electrical. That wasn't the deal that we had. We did agree that we would run power to it, and so that's why I was adamant last meeting to have you come in, so that we could talk to you to see if we could come up with any better solutions rather than spending $90,000 of taxpayers' money on this building. Would it be better suited to do something else? We didn't even have the dimensions of the building at our last meeting. We didn't even know what it was. We were told it was worth $420,000 in 2016, but in my mind, there's no way that that's a legitimate number that building is worth. And if it was worth that amount of money, sell the building, take the money, give it to you guys, build whatever you want for $500,000, right? So that's what I just wanted to have that conversation with you in public and in front of council. Is would that money not be better suited than $90,000 towards you guys? I don't know, you've got all the money to do these, but the next building that you want, I don't know if it's a sound stage or bathrooms or whatever, would that not be better suited than moving this building for you guys?
My only, in the staff report that went in, that Doug Beal wrote, it's my understanding that the moving of the building was only $12,000. That's how I take that. The rest was electrical. So I'm not sure if that's, the issue I have is that we leased the property with the building on it. Everyone knew the intention was to use the building. Mr. Pisani was the one in charge at the time, and we had lengthy discussions about this. He's the one that we dealt with the lease. He said that everything was good to go, everything was inspected, and it was no trouble. They were just gonna hook up the power, and it wasn't gonna be an issue.
Right.
And actually, Mr. Beal's report is really good because it addresses all the concerns that TR Days had and went to him with to say, look, is this structurally sound? Like, there's cracks in the foundation. Is that okay? The stairs that were on it were old pallets. I said, did all this pass code? Because this is a district building. Everything was fine. So we moved on and basically had no say. So we were taking it as it was. When I was told the building was going to be moved, TR Days was beyond happy because in our plans in the last 10 years, a building is in our way. Now, we love the building and we need the building, but it's right in the way of the stage. So when we knew that we would have to kind of put up with the building in its location, our other spot was the other corner of the field. Now again, we were not told ahead of time that that's a district septic field. We had no idea. We can't put a stage there. That area has to be cleared. So now the only placement for the stage was in the center of the field. So when Doug said, okay, we're moving that building, it's like, okay, well, that's great because that works with our original plans. We changed all our drawings, we did all our things, we sent it to our construction team, everything. Everything was great. 2 days before it was going to be moved, I got the email that there was a stop work order. So this is concerning because the building has been unstrapped, taken apart. The building's now leaking. There's water in the building that we have our stuff stored in. So we've been at a standstill all summer long, ever since we signed the lease that we were rushed into signing because someone was going on holidays. We signed the lease with the agreement the power would be done. Power's still not done. We have no building. We can't use the field for absolutely anything. So when it comes to the building, we did some quick quotes to see what it would cost to, if we didn't have that building, to put up a new building. And one of the things was the district building, the recycling building down at the dump being built. Apparently that's in the $250,000 range for that building there. And I know that's way taller than what we would need, but it's probably, the building that we have is probably larger than that one. I'm not sure on the dimensions, but that's the kind of money that I think it would cost to build it. This is a temporary building, but it does have furnaces, a big furnace, and it does have air conditioners in it. It does have all the lighting already in it. When I went to the Dawson Creek Co-op to get a quote for that, say a 40 by 60 building, the rough quote comes in at $40,000. So that quote is only for a shell. Doesn't include insulation, doesn't include the plywood inside. All it includes is 4 doors. No lights, no furnace, no air conditioning, none of that stuff that this building already has. So our contractor said it would cost probably $300,000 to put up that same building. So, I mean, would we love a permanent building that we didn't have to worry about? Absolutely, because it is in our plans in every event that we do to use that building. So we need something, so I don't know what the solution here is. And certainly these numbers were a surprise to everyone. I don't think anyone expected those numbers for that electrical to be like that. We didn't know that it was electrical power. I don't think anybody knew, or European.
Councilor Overy?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Thank you for coming in, Terry, and representing TRDs. Firstly, I'm really excited to see what you guys are going to do out there. I know we were all hoping someone could take the reins and develop something for us, and I'm glad that you're taking the reins for us and bringing outside money into the community and developing something that our community can use. Because, yeah, there's only so much we can do, right? So I'm glad that, you know, an organization like yourselves taking on that massive project, and not finding reasons why not to. Right? You're finding reasons how to do it and pushing forward. So thank you. Back to the building and the costs. With your needs moving forward, I understand that you have some existing electrical infrastructure that you need to use. Well, do you have existing infrastructure that you use on a regular basis, like for when you put on GrisFest, and could that potentially be used to reduce cost savings? Or do you know, and if you don't know, I understand, we need a doubling up of that? Essentially, can we save some money by using what you already have?
I'm not sure what kind of things you're referring to there. Like the big things at GrisFest were the stage, the tent, everything that belongs to the district. So, like, I'm not sure what you're meaning.
Councilor Overy, are you talking about like using a transformer that they already hooked into?
Yeah.
At the previous grounds?
Yeah.
I think that's the districts. So that'd be something for staff to look into. I believe, I wasn't at the meeting, but I know I talked to Mayor Bertrand, and there was some talk about that or something. About something, I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something for staff to get back to council on, is that the previous transformer they were using down at the secondary school grounds. I don't know if it's tied in into Rapid ports, or is it on that pole? I'm not sure exactly what's tied in.
Three-phase power power on the pole,
And it's on the,
down to a breaker, or a breaker box.
but where is it located at, you know?
Right on the school field, right on the top edge of the school field there. It's its own thing.
I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and my thought is if we're not having, you know, a music festival down at the high school anymore, can we, you know, save some money by moving it out there,
By
right?
pulling that out.
That's what I said last week,
I
yeah.
mean, that makes sense.
Is that who said it? Yeah, I heard it was mentioned.
Oh, yeah, well, I'll bring it up because
That's what we're talking
Councilor Howard.
Okay, I have one question, and you might not be able to answer it, and I know Mr. Beal couldn't be here, but, so there was power to that building at one point. I'm assuming they cut it, I'm not sure who cut it, I'm assuming it's probably the previous tenant. So is it still not in the ground level, they just cut it in the ground?
So it was originally cut, they used to have a C-can there right at the front, and that's where all the electrical went into. And when Vestas moved out, they pulled out the C-can and they cut the lines right there. So the underground power was still running to the building, but when the building was going to be moved, the power lines were dug up to go to where the building was going to be. So now that's where those underground cables are. They're at the front.
So we've moved the cables?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I haven't been out there. Councilor Howell?
So my concern is here, this is a temporary building. It will still be a temporary building once we're done with it. We're gonna move it now and put it on wood blocks and put it on ground that was recently excavated. And that building is gonna move. That's what temporary buildings do. For $40,000, she's talking about a 40 by 60 style building that they can get from the co-op to be put in with a concrete foundation.
That doesn't include the.
It doesn't include concrete. So in my mind, are we not better suited to look at that direction rather than take this building and you know, to me, I don't know. We're gonna have a council down the road is gonna have to do a permanent building at some point in the next, I don't know what the lifespan on those units are, but what are we gonna get? 10 years out of it? And then you've got to tear out all the electrical. It doesn't make sense to me to go with units that have European power in it, and we're gonna rip all that European power stuff out and put all this new stuff inside the building just to make use of these buildings. Like, I think we should at least investigate the possibility of selling these things. You know, contact Ritchie Brothers, see if they can come in and see if they can get $50,000 or $60,000. There's your concrete pad paid for. You know, we're further ahead to have a permanent building, and they could locate it exactly where they want it. You know, maybe, you know, it could be a heck of a lot better than what that thing out there is. That's my opinion on it. But.
I got myself and then Councilor Norberg. So I guess my question, again, if Council can fill me in, was this discussed in the last meeting, maybe having a staff report in regards to building a purpose-built building down there instead of moving ahead with moving the building and stuff like that? But there's 90 grand to move it, and if you do sell it, I mean, maybe you'll get 20 grand for it. So, okay, I was just curious.
No staff reports.
Okay. Councilor Norberg and then Councilor Majinski.
Thank you, Councilor Kalka. And, you know, just to fill yourself in and Councilor Kirby, you know, the decision, council decision was to move the building and install electrical. But anyways, you know, back to, I want to, you know, address a comment Councilor Howe made, $40,000 for a building, but, you know, our representative here says to replicate what's there would be $300,000. So, you know, I think we're losing a little bit there, right? Like, it's $40,000 an empty shelf, but we have something in hand that we can use that is useful, right? You know, and we were told it's a $420,000 bill. So I'd hate to lose that. And, you know, like, you know, for temporary buildings, they may be temporary, but temporary buildings sure can last quite a long time. Like, they're not just meant to last 1 or 2 years, but temporary buildings can get quite a bit of use out of them. I mean, I don't want to hesitate, I don't want to guess how long it would last for, but I'm sure we get use out of it. And then when the time is finished, if we decide to change something out there, it can be easily moved and we can find a different spot for it, right? That is one of the benefits of temporary buildings, that it can be moved out relatively fast. We can potentially get some value out of it at that time. So yeah, I still see positives in using what we have. And then if we're talking about selling it down the future, we can still do it. So,
Councilor Majinski.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. There was a little bit of discussion on the moving of that building or potentially of selling it, and I think we have that on hold as for now after we have the talks with TR Day Society. And the whole reason we wanted to see is if a purpose-built building would be more viable, and I'm kind of leaning towards that way myself in regards to those temporary buildings that are out there. I'm assuming they're only 8-foot walls. And say that we do have props and stuff like that TR Days wants to do for the Halloween stuff, they won't be able to fit them in there. And if they want to expand and get bigger. So potentially with a bigger, larger building, you can actually put more in it and be more utilized and more accessible, especially if you have doors on it instead of these temporary buildings that just have little man doors on them and maybe not a big wide open space. So I think we wanted to venture that idea and see what we can get these for, and maybe even investors would like to buy them back, previous tenants. They might want those buildings back and use them on another site, on one of their new sites. So I think we should entertain that, and maybe we can have something that's purpose built so that has a first aid station, a ticket booth, something like that, like something that you can have an administration office building in there. You know, you can kind of tailor to exactly what they need it for, instead of just having some portable trailers kind of hodgepodge together, not even on a concrete pad, because they will have to move sometime. And yes, this lease is only 3 years, but even the next tenant that takes on, and if it is not TR Days, somebody else, they could utilize it and have it so that you can actually fit equipment in there. So I just want to see if TR Days has any concepts or ideas, maybe to have a building that would be similar to what's there, but maybe conform to their ideas better. And maybe even a better look, because these are just tin shells really. And maybe we could match the rest of our community with like how our community center looks and just have a nice facade to it. So that's my only options out there to your days, and see if they can maybe even come back with some ideas like that, and maybe you can work with their systems or whoever, right? In behalf with the district as well, right?
Can't speak for Terry, I'll let her speak to herself, but I'm assuming they have ideas probably what they'd like to see in a building. Terry?
You know, I could go on all night about the ideas I have for out there. The issue is going to be money, is going to be the biggest issue, and time. This year is just wasted. I mean, nothing happened, nothing's, you know, it just frustrating. And if this is the case, well, if the district wants to put in money for this building, so they're gonna have to move this other one anyway, right? So, I mean, yes, I would love a great big building out there right in the corner that we could have this inside stuff in, because as we know, the weather here for these events, and 2 of our big events are fall events. And to have that space inside, that it doesn't matter if there's 2 feet of snow out there, that everyone is nice and dry and warm, it would be fantastic. But I'm also realistic, and I know how long these things take. And a 3-year lease, I don't think is gonna do it. We would rather have a new building out there, of course, that would last and that you would not have to worry about. But if it's now versus years down the road, we would rather have now.
So I got Councillor Kukalka and then Councillor Murray. So yeah, my thoughts are too, is where Councillor Majinski was going there. And I haven't gone, I didn't even look at these trailers, but I mean, no disrespect to Vestas, we appreciate them for what they put the grounds back to and really working with the district and stuff. It also makes you wonder why they would leave a $421,000 investment. So again, I didn't go look, I know staff did, so nothing to staff, so please don't take offense. But it makes me wonder if they're worth it. You know, I listen to Councillor Howe say, oh geez, let's bring in somebody to see if we can sell them. Are they even worth it? Yes, we can baby fix them with $90,000 by moving them, adding power, try to clean them up a bit, but again, how long do they last for? Councillor Noberry, like you said, you don't want to put years to it, but is it a $90,000 good investment or a bad investment? So are you better off taking 90 grand, talk about something else in budget, like we have a budget that we have to discuss, whether it's capital or, I mean, obviously not fee for service or grant aid, but that's our grounds eventually. I mean, TR Days has a lease. We appreciate them coming forward and willing to take this on, go after grants, do all that. Come in with some drawings already, obviously more stuff to come. They're gonna build it and maybe that gets passed on to the district, or it does go to another group, but maybe it is the district. And, you know, when I hear that the building is our geez, what was that word? Asset. Asset, that's why we're doing this, because it's our asset. What's really upset me is I believe the whole grounds is our asset. We've asked a non-for-profit to put the rest of the fencing in. It's our asset. Our asset. So I can't believe that fell through the gaps. That we're worried about these trailers and we have no idea. They say they're worth 420 grand. I don't believe that. So whatever the value of those trailers are, that's an asset that we need to move, repower them, do all this. Yet we asked the group to go and do fencing on an asset that we own. You know, I thought about that after our previous meeting and closed. And I missed the last meeting that was brought up and open, but that was my comments in that open meeting, if I could call in, is that supposed to be our asset? We're asking you guys for fencing. So, you know, I mean, I think the fencing part's already in their budget, and it's not something I'd like to, again, time-wise, you obviously haven't done quicker than we can discuss it and do anything with it. But this building, I think maybe we should ask for it to go back to staff for an option of selling it, whether, I mean, I don't know if it's only Ritchie Brothers that's out there, or a private sale, but maybe we should see if we can actually, if it's viable to sell, I'm not sure what council thinks, but get a report, and all of a sudden staff comes back and says, yeah, nobody wants it because it's only worth 5 grand. Then why put 90 grand into it? I wouldn't do that at my own house. So. Councillor Noberry, then Majinski.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. How, to Terry, how would this affect your plans moving forward without this building? And I think it seems like this building being moved will have an impact on society next year at the year end. Like immediately, you can start doing things out of this. How would that hinder your ability to provide a service without the building?
That building is in all of our plans. In our lease agreement, it is mandatory that we have a first aid station at every event that we put on. Well, that's our first aid station for one. When we bring in a paid security company, we pay $20,000 for insurance for security for Christfest. We need security headquarters. We need a place, you know, and we need offices. This isn't just one little event. This is a building project. We are building out there. We are, you know, we have big events planned, not just, you know, these little dances or something. These are all going to be turned into big town events, and that will bring in tourism as well. And without that building, yes, it hampers every plan we have. Something as simple as the fall fair. Well, do you remember the last fall fair that was here? Because it was in the arena because the weather was so terrible. So for our competitions and stuff, like we plan on using that building for that. I mean, that was going to be the focal point of the fall fair, was that building. For Halloween, we planned on our family-friendly portion being in that building. It's all in my head what it's going to look like. And now, you know, it's going to hamper every single thing we do, and it's hampered us right from the beginning, right? I mean, we've already put stuff in there for storage because TR Days accumulates a lot of stuff. And because we plan on doing all this and we've got grants to pay for this stuff, and now we were told not to put anything else in that building. Well, as usual, my house is full of TR Days stuff because I got nowhere to put it. And I can't put it in that building because it's gonna get wet, it's gonna get wrecked. There's moisture, it's wet in that building right now. So no matter what you do with the building, something has to be done to seal it. So yes, not having the building is going to be, we would really have to rethink what we're gonna do with all our events going forward.
Councillor Majinski, then Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, that's why we asked TR Days to come in, is to see if it's even worth us even pursuing the idea of having a purpose-built building, if they can just make do with what they have now to get up and going. And I think it's partly on our onus now that we've stifled their progress for a full year. And whether they can get a purpose-built building and have it started in the spring, at the same time they get their stage and their pergola ready, all at the same time, potentially by the same builder or multiple builders or whatever, but if we have even a time frame on when we can get a purpose-built building done for them, and if we can even sell these by next spring, I think it's very doubtful that we can get all this done in one time. So we're in a tough position here, and we're actually hindering progress on a non-profit organization. And that's my only concern right now, is how we can get this moving forward quickly.
Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Thanks for coming in, Terry. I know when we first walked down and looked at that building on the grounds, from going to having nothing to something that you could just unlock the door and actually put an event on, it was exciting and it looked good, and it's really disappointing that the building turned out to have so many issues. The fact that you've moved stuff down there right now, I think council has to think about how we're gonna help the group get through this winter with all of your, all the stuff, where are you gonna put it? Maybe we'll have to kind of find some alternate storage till then, or if we can at least have that building, you know, the leak looked after so that we can at least use it as storage for now. But I think it is something that we should look into a little bit further to see what route we take, because we need a building out there for sure to hold anything. And the drawings that you have of the other two buildings is good, but it's not what you need for the, you know, what's down there right now. And right now, what's down there now is what's going to see the festivals or things move forward in the next couple of years. I do think, unfortunately, that's a lot of money to spend on something that's really, like Councilor House said, putting a Band-Aid on a pig. It really is. And the wiring, I didn't realize, like, those are just really unfortunate that we didn't catch those a little sooner. There's a lot of grants out there. There's new, NDIT has some new recreation infrastructure grants. that they launched this week that we could look into for another building. It's maybe how we just make this work for next year, or just beginning while we're looking at this, because we know that this isn't gonna be quick. Okay, let's just build something. That's kind of that's not gonna happen. So we have to look at power right now. What are we gonna do with all their stuff? Moving forward, the lease agreement, we're not keeping up our end on that, so this is gonna take a little time, I think, back on the table.
Councillor Genoberi, then Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, my concerns when we're talking about purpose-built facility, and I think Councillor Majinski touched on it, is how long would it take to get something built out there? We need to get engineering documents done. It needs to come through us, you know, because, and I'm dubious to think that it's going to be a quick and easy procedure when it comes to what we're going to put out there. You know, that's my concern. Like it could take at least a year just to get the proper engineering documents, and then putting out to tender. Maybe it comes back late. You know, we could be looking at a building 4 years from now when we want to get going for things happening next year. Right? This would get us at least up on our feet and providing services and events to our community and the public.
So just a comment to get clarification. I believe the recycle building was put into capital and budget discussion. That was, drawings were done between that part. The engineering was all done, and I believe it's almost complete. Right? So that's in less than 6 months, once it was approved by council.
Were those engineering documents brand new, or are they from existing project because it was a previous project?
Yeah, but it was done this year, right?
My understanding.
Councillor Howe?
Yeah, it does take 4 years to put a building up. Guys put up garages in their backyards. They're building 26 by 30 garages with 10-foot walls in their backyard in 2 weeks. You put a garage up. I mean, the biggest problem in Tumbler is just a concrete pad, and we have the district, regional district guy comes in and tells us we can build a 40 by 60 floating pad. That's what the pad is. It's down at the recycling building. Bernie Neiman's is the guy. I mean, he's the guy that's done lots of construction. I've done a ton of construction work. Bernie's done a ton of construction work. And the two of us are sitting here just thinking, like, my God, you guys, it's not rocket science what we're trying to do here. $100,000 can get you a really good building, and we shouldn't build it. Right? That's the problem. The district of Tumbler Ridge, when we build it, it costs us way too much money. Give them the money, say this is as much money as we are going to give you. You guys figure out what you want with that money. They come in and say this is what we're going to build. Let them go at it. A couple of things I want to point out, though. We haven't stifled our process, Councillor Medzinski. There was this thing going on called COVID-19 pandemic, and it really stifled everybody's process. It was not the district of Tumbler Ridge. The way I understood the way that this thing was going to go out there was going to be a staged process. So they were going to come in and say, stage one, we want to build this. And we would look at it and say, fantastic, and approve it, and it gets done. There was some grants with NDIT. This is the first thing, the first time I've seen any of this pergola or this other stuff that, first time I've seen it. I heard a little bit about it from Councillor Medzinski, but again, like Councillor Krakowka said, it's supposed to come through us in a staged process, and we go, yeah, okay, you're doing that, NDIT's building it, it's going in the back corner, it can be used further on down the road in case this doesn't work with TR Day Society. Yes, we approve it, we move on. And that's the way I thought this process was going to go. How we got to this point all of a sudden that we have to have a pergola, a stage, and a building all in by the time October rolls around is way, way, way beyond what I ever thought was going to happen with TR Day Society. I did not think that was happening by this year. Honestly, had no idea that was the plan for this council. So we haven't had any meetings to approve anything. So the way it's been explained to us, when you and I were talking here earlier, the way it was explained of how the process was supposed to work with TR Day Society getting the lease, and to them actually being set up and doing their thing out there, I didn't think it was supposed to be 4 or 5 months. I had no idea. I thought maybe you guys were going to do the pumpkin patch and bring the fire trucks out and drop the pumpkins and whatever, but that was not building buildings and pergolas and stages and everything else. So, and I get where you're coming from. I do not want to see you slow down either, and I don't by any means think the DTR is slowing you down. This all came to light when staff decided to spend $90,000, and we found out about it, or I don't know, I found out about it, and I was concerned about it because I didn't think that staff was able to just go out and spend $90,000 without council approval. And this is way beyond what the approval I understood was out there. We have a report coming up in this agenda from our economic development officer that he's coming to get approval to spend $912. But we can go and spend 90 grand just because? That is not right for our taxpayers, period. I don't care if TRDA Society gets delayed by 3 years, or 2 years, or 1 year, or 8 months, doesn't matter to me. We still got to account for the taxpayers' dollars. Spending 90 grand on this is stupid. I'm sorry, but it is. Done.
So you mean stupid in regards to fixing the
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure you weren't, it wasn't
Waste
stupid in
of
regards to the
Throw it on.
previous building we're talking about. Councillor Lehman and Councillor. Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Purpose-built building, I see is probably the right way to go. Now, you're talking about office space and stuff like that. I think you can put maybe 2 or 3 offices in there, and then I don't think anything needs to be like a fancy office. I think all you need is space. And I think as far as AC and heat, when you're gonna heat a building that size, you're gonna be looking well in excess of $100,000 just to heat and AC if you want AC. And I don't understand why AC would be even an issue, because I think if you're gonna worry about air conditioning, you worry about maybe the office space. But you can always use, you know, partitions to make more offices if you wanted to, because what you're looking for is space. So you have a big space and you can divide it into whatever you need, but you have portable walls that you can move into places so people can have offices. And I just think, as far as this 50,000 for electrical, something smells, because the question that I've asked, everybody that I've talked to shakes their head and says, and can't understand why it would take so much to fix the electrical, because the wiring is fine, it's the power that's going in is wrong. But you put a transformer in and you fix that problem, because 480 is not that much different from 600. So if we're gonna spend $90,000, I'd rather it would be on a purpose-built building instead of fixing up something that has too many issues.
So then myself, so, and Councillor Kirby hit on more, I think it just needs to come back to light, and that's, I guess, one, we need to decide about these buildings, if moving ahead with them, or looking at trying to get a staff report in regards to selling them. The money that we're gonna sell them for, we give that money that we're gonna sell them for, plus the 90 grand to TRDs to look at the purpose of the building. In my opinion, if it's over the amount that we have between the 90 and whatever we sell these units for, then I think that needs to come back to us before budget process, so that we can understand, and this is what's needed, and hopefully council understands that. But Councillor Kirby, you mentioned in regards to storage. And, you know, if that's something we're gonna do, I think that's something that has to come in discussion in the report, that we'd have to be also from this district side looking at helping make sure that stuff is secured for the winter. As Ms. Cosgrove's already mentioned, it's already getting wet where it's located, so. Go ahead, Terry.
Just to respond to Councillor Lehman, we were not looking for anything fancy. The building is what it is. If you haven't seen it, you should come out and see it. It was fine with us, and if you've ever been to Halloween, we make our own walls. We put them up, and that was our intention in the building. We will partition it off. So we aren't looking for this, you know, big fancy thing. That was never our intent. It's to be functioning. As far as the air conditioning goes, you would probably never use the air conditioning here. It's just that it's already in there, and that's why I mentioned it. Again, with the heat, we probably wouldn't heat the whole building. You know, it's a good sized building, so to turn the heat on, you're right, we probably wouldn't use it. I just mentioned it because it's already there. As for storage, our purpose originally, when this whole thing, our grant includes, we are purchasing 2 40-foot sea cans. So one is for our Halloween walls, and the other one is for.
Sorry.
So we have already budgeted for 2 of these 40-foot sea cans. Like I said, one is for walls for our haunt, that we will build them once and we will store them. The other is for storage. So these sea cans are huge and dry, and that was, you know, that's our main thing, is where we were gonna put everything. We haven't bought them yet because we're gonna put them beside the building to try and hide them. They're not the best looking, right? So if the building was gonna be moved, we were gonna wait till the building was moved and then put them right beside them. But if that's still not gonna happen and it may be taken out of there, I don't know where to put them. We're only gonna move them once, so we could buy the sea cans now and drop them there, but once they're there, and we're kinda have to go around them from there.
Councillor Noberry, then Councillor Kirby. Councillor Noberry, or even Councillor Kirby, before you speak, is there any discussion going forward in regards to sea cans? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, kind of.
No.
Just to inform everybody, like, there is storage available at the Public Works Yard. We renovated that area to allow for people to come and go. And I think one of the purposes was to allow for a sea can for groups to be used, and they can have access without coming through Lois Works. So if you do purchase sea cans, that spot should be available. But that being said, I still see the value of these buildings and the value that they'll bring to us.
Go ahead, Terry.
So just to respond to that, we do use the nonprofit Public Works storage area. That's where all our trailers are. Now, the problem is, if we put sea cans there, once they're there, and these are 40-foot ones, these are big. We can't do that with these, because the purpose is, for one thing, these are 8-foot walls, right? So we gotta make them on the fairgrounds, so we can't transport them over, like, it's, same with our storage, like, so we store it here, but then we gotta, you know, truckloads and truckloads of stuff. It doesn't make any sense. The whole point is to make the fairgrounds usable, easy access, everything's out there. Simple. I like simple.
Yeah, if there's anything so you can't talk, now would be the opportunity.
Okay,
Go ahead, Councillor Kirby.
thank you. Has it been voted and passed already that that building was going to be moved?
Ms. Torval.
Yes.
And can that be done this year?
Ms. Torval.
Sorry, what was your-
And that can be done before the snow flies? That can be done this year?
The movie?
Yeah.
The building? Yes.
And when was that scheduled to take place?
I haven't given any direction as to proceed. I know that council approved it, but I knew that this meeting was coming up tonight. I wanted to have a discussion with TR Days, and I just held off on everything.
Okay.
So this discussion can possibly change that motion that's been previously made.
No,
That's what,
no. It's just that I didn't give direction to proceed with the move. You know, wasn't going to do it the next day after council, you know, made the motion.
Councillor Wojcicki.
Yeah, and I think I made that motion to hold off on any decisions of moving the building until we talk to TR Days to see if they would prefer a purpose-built building instead of moving what they have there if they're not usable.
So Terry, which one do you prefer? Purposely, well, I just heard, I apologize, Councillor, I wasn't at the meeting. No, there was no motion. To hold it off.
Or to move it.
Staff, go ahead, Ms. Torval.
Sorry, Acting Mayor. At the last meeting, council did vote to move the building and to rectify the building as was in the report and motion. However, after council passed that, there were a couple of suggestions that we hold off on the move. There was no motion to that effect, to wait until after we heard from TR Days. But there was no motion.
But some of that discussion obviously is what Councillor Wojcicki just spoke about. Just curious from TRA Society. I get, like we're saying, or staff is saying, and I mean, no disrespect, staff saying, they got the paper that says there's an approximate value of $421,000. Pretty sure we're all realistic, I haven't seen them, but probably not worth that. So I guess our question about TRDs, so we can debate and have a discussion up here with council and not have to include you in the debate, is what does TRDs society prefer?
TRD Society would like the use of a building. So, like I say, if it is a permanent structure out there, I think that's better for the functionality and the future of the fairgrounds and for the district, because everything out there is gonna be theirs anyway. But with that being said, TRDs can't pay for that. The one that's out there now is already there. Our grants are looking elsewhere. So this was never in our thoughts at all. When we were released that with the intent to use the building, that was working for us. So yes, we would love to have a permanent building, but is the district gonna pay for that building?
So I appreciate your kind words when you say that you guys are looking elsewhere, not looking at doing your purpose-built building because of these were there. I think that's a discussion this council's gonna have. Is it worth $90,000 of taxpaying money, the taxpayers' money, to fix something up that you may not get the life expectancy of the $90,000? Or is it better off to give you the $90,000 that we're talking about to move the building, do the electrical, plus if we are able to sell these two buildings and how they come apart or whatever, there's money there, also give that money to you. Because Councilor Howland made comment, probably best for you guys to take over a building through your contractor or whoever you see fit. Now, the same understanding as a councilor, that if it's only $90,000 and like I said, throw a ballpark, you get 20 grand for these things. That's only 110,000. Well, let's say it's a $200,000 building. Obviously, you'll get quotes or whatever. That's something that has to come back to me, my belief, back to council and have that debate that, this is what we've done. So we got to be, and I still think if it's within our budget, if it's under our budget in 2020, 2021, I guess, yeah. It should be able to be done next year, in my personal opinion. And that's only me as a council, can't speak for the rest. Councilor.
So I have a quote here from Co-op, because I asked them for a quote for a 40 by 60 building, 14-foot walls with 3 man doors in it. And it's a shell, it's not the concrete pad, but it's $19,362. This is what I was going to get built. I was going to build one of these, right? So to build the floating pad or the concrete pad that goes under that, I don't know, you're probably looking at $25,000, somewhere in that range. So you can get that style of building. Yeah, it doesn't have the lights in it, but like the amount that what we can get for our money shouldn't be construed here. When we start talking about, we're getting to the $200,000 mark. Yeah, when the district at the top of the ridge builds it, it's going to be a $200,000 building, right? But when somebody else that doesn't have to reveal how much money that they're putting out to spend by the building is, we have to. When we do a budget, we have to say, well, we'll put 200,000. So then the bids come in and the bids are right around 200,000. When you give the money to the TRD Society, they can manage the money better. So they can come in and say, geez, we get the building built for $50,000. We can put $12,000 in electrical in it. And geez, we've got $36,000 left over for Grizzfest for next year. The money's better spent in their hands. It's simple. What do you got there, Bernie?
So I guess just to stop, how would that process work?
It's not an open meeting, right? Like it's a P&P meeting.
What's that, sorry?
If he has something like, it doesn't have to be totally formal like
Still
this.
control of the PNP, absolutely.
Okay.
So I guess just for staff, how does that work, that the vote was done to the previous meeting, I wasn't there. And if there's discussion that, I'm not sure where council sits, but maybe it is a better idea of giving them the $90,000 that we're willing to spend to move the building plus power, and then we still deal with the building that's on the grounds, whether it's sold or whatever. That would have to come back in the staff report, in my opinion.
And this may be a time when we might want to do a reconsideration of the motion at your next regular meeting. So to reconsider, because you did give direction to move that structure down there, right? So.
Okay, Councilor Hutton.
So how does that work? Somebody who voted for it can bring it back for consideration. Isn't that how it works?
No, so now it has to be the mayor or the chair of the meeting. As councilors, we can only bring it back at that same meeting. After that meeting, it now becomes up to the mayor, whoever's chairing, so that or the deputy, to bring it back up for reconsideration within a month. And I believe it has to be done at an open meeting, like not at PNP, but a regular council meeting.
That's correct, and within 30 days, and you are correct there. And there is a special meeting scheduled for October 5th, so it could be done at that time.
So that's where the debate, in my opinion, unless there's more questions from council, but Councilor Wojcicki?
So maybe we could ask TRD Society to look at quotes on a preferred size building and see what they come back with, and a time frame of build season this year so that they get the ball rolling for next year with their grant money from NDIT so that they can start with their pergola. And we should also look at how much it's going to cost or relocate these temporary buildings right now.
No, I think the cost is already equivalent by staff report, $90,000.
To
That's the number that's being thrown out by council. Sorry?
It's 12 to move.
And then how?
No, just 12 to move.
no, off of the site.
Okay.
And where to put them, and if somebody wants them right away, because then we're gonna be stuck sitting somewhere. Because if we can move them out of the way so that build can start this fall, before the ground starts to freeze, have a concrete pad in place, and even if the structure is up right next spring, it's gonna give them time to have all their NDIT money in process and so that they don't have to go back to their funders and saying, oh, okay, we're delayed.
But I don't think their understanding is to build, if they build a purpose building, we build it wherever the staff is brought forward to council, where to move it, so. Just Terry, and then I got Councilor Howard, Terry, for, she needs to set her head up there.
So my question is, if you plan on moving the building, no matter what, why not move it to where it was gonna be moved, up front? Because if the power is the major issue, you're gonna spend the $12,000 no matter what to move it. And something has to be done with it, because it can't be left the way it is, or it might as well be hauled to the dump, because it won't be worth anything. It's leaking severely. So if the power is the issue, why not move it anyway up front? And even if a building was decided to be built, it could be built beside it. Our issue with NDIT is we're really tight timelines. Like, we have a year, 12 months to put this to get it up and done. So most of those months are winter months. So we need to be finished this by the end of July. So when we are starting in the spring, and we don't know what that date will be, it depends on what kind of spring we have. If that building hasn't moved, it's right in our way. So that will delay again. So my thing is, I think that building needs to be moved now, no matter what, and why not keep it on the property?
Councilor Howard.
So the problem with moving it on the property, it's cost us 12 grand to move it. When we go to move it again, we gotta spend another 12 grand. Because you gotta bring in cranes, tractor trailers, riggers, maybe, I don't know, other trucks, pickups, whatever you need to get that thing moved. So to me, are you guys building anything this year? If that wasn't there, would you guys be building right now?
Not this year, no.
Okay, so then we're not in a major time rush to move this thing. And I understand that there's some issues around the leaks and whatever in it. That building used to hold multi-million-dollar computerized equipment in it, right? It was on Vancouver Island for a year and a half on their windmill site down there where they did all this work on it. The reason it's leaking is because we removed the tarp off the roof. It wasn't leaking when I went and looked in that building. Probably wasn't leaking when you put the stuff in there. The reason it's leaking is because we removed the tarp that was on it. So put the tarp back on, spend some time, button this thing up. I would assume staff would have already done that. They're trying to protect our asset. So we take the time to figure out what we're doing, and we make a commitment to Terry to say if we can't figure this out, we will absolutely move that building up to the front way before your construction season starts. There's no reason in that area in there you can't move that in the winter. Absolutely nothing. You could go in there in December and plow that area out, bring cranes in, lift it, put it on tractor trailers and move it. It'd actually be easier to do it because the ground would be frozen. So we're not in a time crunch for the NDIT grant or anything this year. That needs to be understood because they aren't building anything this year. It's not going to happen till next spring. Totally agree with you. If we don't have our stuff together by spring, we got a problem. Absolutely.
Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yeah, I think like moving the building makes sense. I hear Councilor Lehman and Councilor say, how can it cost this much money to wire this up? Well, that's my question. Like, these are all estimates, are just estimates, right? Like, we don't know what the actual cost will be. But, we have, Councilor Howe yourself, you compliment Councilor Lehman's construction experience and knowledge. It should only cost us $5,000 to $10,000 to electrify this. Why is that? Shouldn't that be the cost we'll be looking at, right? Like, we can just say, well, as estimates, they're just, you know, covering all the bases in case there's that goes wrong. But if the cost is 10,000, why are we saying that's been 50, right? Can't we get a deal on this?
I'm just assuming, yes, Ms. Torreville, we got our own power estimates to do the powering, I'm assuming? Mr. Beal or staff did it? Do you have those numbers in front of you? I don't have that report, so.
For the whole, sorry.
Like for the power part, right? I see there's one that the
57.
TR Days is supplied, and it says it's 13,000 to move the building and then 57,000 or 52,000 for electrical. But I imagine if we're talking $90,000 here a couple weeks ago, staff went out and got 3 quotes for power, 3 quotes to move it, whatever we needed. So do we have that number from staff?
We have the BC Hydro's estimate, which is 20,000. That's to approve meter bases, panels, and electrical equipment. Cost to relocate the building, 12,000. Cost to install electrical equipment to code for electrical requirements is estimated at, I believe it was 57,000.
There's your number.
Estimates.
Go ahead, sorry. Good, sorry. Councilor Al?
So there's 2 components to the electrical here, right? So these buildings that are out there now were constructed for European power. The type of power is different from what we have in our lines. So BC Hydro has to do, they're gonna provide that area with 3-phase power. That means 3 garbage cans up on top of the lines instead of 1 garbage can up there. That's what the transformers are, right? So again, you don't need 3-phase power out for Grisfest. You may need 3-phase power if you were taking the step to get it ready for a music event or whatever. But what we had agreed to in our lease was not to provide 3-phase power. It was to provide power to the building. So it's a large step to go from single phase to 3-phase power. The cost is a lot. I put power in my industrial yard here in Tumbler Ridge for about $2,500 with a pole and a transformer. $2,500. So that's where the cost estimates come from for that. The $57,000, the way I understand it, is because of all the stuff that's on the inside of that building needs to be changed out. And I don't know if that includes the furnaces that we're talking about, or the AC units, or the power inside the building, but that's the problem that I have with it, is that all this stuff inside of it is made for European power, and the way we've been explained to us is that we can't just go get a generator like they use to run that entire building. So that's the 2 power components here. And the side you were talking about, Chris, where you talked about grabbing the transformers and the poles and that down at the previous grounds, I don't know that staff ran that by BC Hydro. That still hasn't been answered to me if we have. Because we already have 3-phase power right across the street from where that is. It's in the old yard where the old Mamaway camp used to be. There's a pole there that also has 3-phase power. Now I don't know, can they reuse that stuff? I think they can. The mines do it. The mines take them off poles and move them around. So I don't know why we couldn't do that. But that's the portion that I got frustrated with, is that staff is able to go out and just, we're going to spend 90 grand to move this thing without coming to council on it. Where I look at it and say, that's wasteful. We got better ways to do it. And then when we get into this debate about it, it's 90 grand that we're going to put into a building that we have to totally gut and rip and change and do all this stuff, and we still end up with a temporary building. So like, the whole point is just pump our brakes here and see if there's a better way. And we've got time. We've got until the spring to get that building moved.
Councilor Bird?
No, thank you. And that's sort of the conversation where there should be cost savings to be had. Like, we have power across the street, so can it really cost, I did have the numbers in front of me, the $77,000 between those 2 estimates, there's gotta be some cost savings there. Staff are always looking out how to save us money, and I believe that they'd be able to find a workable way to bring the cost down for us. And I want to trust staff to make those right decisions. So I believe that $12,000 plus potentially a smaller amount, we could be getting this way under budget. We're not going to have to build a whole new building. We're not going to have to pay for engineering specs. We're not going to have to spend more time debating about do we want it 30 by 40, 35 by 35. Something's already there. We can make do with what's there. We can do it cost effectively, and we can have it
Yeah, so my thoughts on that, if staff can save money, that should have been in our quote. That should have already come back. We should already know what that is. Hey, listen, we found this, we can save this. It's actually gonna cost us, 22 grand. We don't have that right now. We're being told they need $90,000 to do all this. And when I look at I mean, I haven't seen the building, I've gone by and everything else. Listen to Terry, I understand, put the tarp on, it's not leaking no more. But, if we can build or give money and some extra money to TRDs and we can build, purpose build, that's actually gonna last 35 years and not maybe 5 or 10 or 6 or 3. I mean, especially when I listen to council housing, possibly we're having to rip out all the electrical because it's European and reinstall this stuff. We're putting a Band-Aid on something. I mean, it's not gonna last forever when you put a Band-Aid on it. So I have Councilor Kirby and then Councilor Howe.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just when we thought it was gonna be so easy, you know. The issue with the power, okay, we're, a new building or not, we're gonna have that power talk at the end of it anyway. With Grisfest, the way we were running it before, with the power that's coming from the pole at the tennis courts, that was not adequate really, because we were dealing with a lot of equipment, a lot of sound, a lot of power. Besides that, just that power alone, and the one on the side of the hill there, we still needed how many light towers and extension cords running. We were sucking power out of every piece of equipment we could get volunteered down there. So, you know, we should really look at that for the plans of this. Like, when this all happened, that we had that area and Vestas gave us the building, this was perfect when you're starting from nothing. So it was almost fenced. It had something that we could use right then and there without hauling all these trailers and this and that. So the building is useful. You know, that is still, that's a truth. It's just like your first home you buy. It might not be the best, but we're gonna make it work. So this is what I liked about the group, is it was an excellent opportunity to start from the bottom up and grow your event and figure out what you need. Getting the grant from NDIT, just like you said, this is supposed to come in phases. They lucked out, they put in a good proposal. Next thing you know, we have a stage, and we also have, you know, other assets out there. That was quick, but that's awesome again. So it's our job to figure out and sit down and talk with strategic planning is how that area should look for the community and how it's gonna work for the community. And I absolutely think it's gotta have the power out there that's suggested. We could probably make that building work and would probably be a good start. Let's see how the events go out there, and maybe we do what we say, put the tarp back on, put it where it's gonna go, and give it a year or two to get the footing and see, okay, this is really used. Maybe we gotta really rethink this other building. That's my thoughts at this point.
Councilor Howe.
Yeah, and part of what you say I was on board with is that we were given the advice by staff that a building was good and we weren't gonna have to spend money. We all thought the same thing at that time, but something fundamentally changed here, and it was to the tune of $90,000. When that happened, I got my hackles up and I say, we're not spending $90,000 in taxpayers' money until we have a debate and a discussion about it. Had we not stopped this project, had we not brought this forward and staff had gone ahead and spent all this money and gone and done it, we wouldn't have had any opportunities to look for cost savings, because they would have just spent the money that they said they were going to spend. And that is my problem with this right out of the get-go, is that staff decided, we're going to move the building, we're going to spend the money, I'm not even going to go through council for it, on $90,000. That should be an issue to you guys as councilors. It's a friggin' issue to me. So, whatever.
So is there any more questions for TRS? Okay, thanks so much, Terry. I think we'll have another debate there at the next open meeting, but I think I agree with Councilor Howe. I can't speak for the rest of council, but I mean, I think, you know, the promise from staff side, I mean, right now there's a motion to move it, all that, so, I mean, I listen to Councilor Howe, I can't disagree more that it'll be moved by spring. One way or the other, depends how the debate goes at the next meeting. Councilor.
Thank you, Deputy. I just have a question. 8-foot ceilings are not really what you're looking for, is it? Because it would be 10-foot would be probably better, or even 12.
Sure, yes, absolutely.
Because 8-foot is going to restrict you in a lot of ways.
I mean, because that's what was there, that's what we planned around. If it was up to me, I'd build a great big warehouse building in there and I'd build a haunt in there that I didn't have to worry about roofing it and everything every year. That we could leave a lot of it up and it would be hidden inside the building so you wouldn't see it from the outside. So, I mean, yeah, that's the dream, that's. But no matter what, it needs attention now because, I mean, it's, like I say, it needs something on that roof.
There's no washrooms in there, is there?
No.
Nothing. It's just open.
It's just a big,
Shell.
empty open space, yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, thanks for your drawings. I imagine staff will have this on the next agenda so that we can have that debate too. And then that way you guys know before we get too far along here.
That would be awesome.
Appreciate everything. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Okay, consent agenda, I take the recommendation. Councillor Nover,
That all items on the September 21st, 2020 consent agenda be moved for information.
second. Councillor Lehman. Discussion. All in favor? Is there anything in the consent agenda that council wishes to bring forward for discussion? Okay. Reports, 7.1. Report from the Director of Economic Development and Tourism dated September 21st, 2020, with proofs for granting graphics to cover the 3 4x4. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I can recuse myself after you're done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Granting graphics to cover 3 4x4 foot plank plywood boards that screen the pressure release valve units along Mackenzie Way. For the recommendation, Councillor Baginski.
Yes, I'd like to recuse myself from this conversation as I have a monetary interest in the design and print of the signage.
Recommendation. Councillor Noguer.
The council receives the graphics on pressure release valve units for information.
Seconder. Councillor Kirby. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Somebody want to grab Councillor Baginski, please?
Curtis, come back.
Just need a little light, a switch. Beep, beep.
I got some nickels I can throw over there.
Should just have a doorbell set up in there, just ding.
Okay. 7.2, the upcoming financial planning workshop, promotional expenses. A report from the Director of Economic Development and Tourism dated September 21st, 2020, providing council with information on the recent initiatives of the Economic Resilience Task Force. Recommendation. Councillor Nober.
The council receives the staff report on promotional expenses for the upcoming financial planning workshop for information.
Second. Councillor Lehman. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Discussion items, 8.1, development of policy preventing appointees to the library board and the community forest board. Councillor Nober.
I'm going to have to recuse myself from this conversation as the wording of discussion is too close to an area I have monitoring interest in.
Okay. Thank you. So, discussion was put on here for it to come back, obviously to a P&P for discussion. This is in regards, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it comes down to the looking for criminal record checks and stuff for board appointees coming to council. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I'm not sure how much we want to discuss it. I mean, I put a motion forward that we direct staff to contact legal to find out what our legal rights are in regards to having criminal record checks sent to council by prospective board members for either the Tumbler Ridge Library Board or the Community Forum. Seconder? Councillor Howe? Discussion? Councillor Howe?
I think we should also include resumes on there as well.
I think resume is good. Sure enough, we can amend that, but I thought resumes were already voted on and was approved, and that's why we're getting,
Okay.
right though?
Is there legal dignity concern?
Can't say for sure.
Okay, so did you want to add that?
I'd like to add that.
Okay, I'll second that. So discussion on the amended motion. Okay, all in favor of the amended motion? Okay, all in favor of the amended motion on the floor? Opposed? Carried. Is there any more discussion in regards to that? Okay, sorry, Councilor Kirby.
Thank you. I wanted to discuss before we went to the vote. Is this, so we're looking for resumes, criminal record checks for these board members. Is that, so we're asking as council to see all this, or is that the chair of the boards will get this done and then just let council know that they were cleared and the record and the proper procedure was followed?
It's coming back for council. Council's asking to see them. That's what the debate was last time.
Okay, I
And
must
that's
have
why I'm
asked.
asking,
Sorry,
that's why I put the motion forward to direct staff to get legal advice on it. Go ahead, Ms. Fordham.
Sorry, and Deputy Mayor and the council, I believe it was back in the July meeting when the direction was given for staff to come up with a policy as well on vetting appointments to the boards. So if you wanted to include some of those parameters tonight, or if you want to wait until we see what the legal ramifications may or may not be, we can do it at that time.
Councilor Ali, you ready?
Yeah, I'm not, maybe I'm not following what you're saying there. What else were you talking about?
Direction was given for council discussion at a PPC meeting, which is tonight, to discuss creating a policy possibly around vetting appointments to boards, members to boards. That would be the community forest and the library board, because those are the ones that council directly appoints.
Yeah, I got Councilor Howard and Councilor Majinski. Sorry, Ms. Fordham.
That's it.
So,
Yeah, so again, my take on it is that we approve these people without even knowing them. And we vet them. When we say, yeah, I approve that person to be on that board on the community forest to spend all that money. And then if something bad happens on the community forest and that money is spent, and then they come back and they say, well, you guys are the ones that approved that guy or that woman to be on that board, we are. So this is a point in the process that I think that we need to take some time, instead of just running these people through. This is not the quilters board, or this is not, the mountain bike board or anything like that. This is two community groups that have a large portion of our budget. I think the library is over $400,000 right now, and the library board, in my mind, we need to know who those folks are that are going on to the library board. And we need to ensure that they are spending taxpayers' money adequately, that they have some type of knowledge on how to budget for $400,000 budget. That is our job as councillors, to make sure that money, and all we're doing right now is writing the check and saying, geez, I hope they got enough money to do this, and they never come back with a way to save money for us. Community forest, for example, is able to put people in on the community forest if they have, and the way it is set up right now, if they have a common interest in something that they're interested in, money can be directed towards those groups. And I'm sorry to say it, but that's the way that it is set up now, because we don't vet anybody. We just simply look at them and pass them on. We don't ever say no to anybody who comes as an approved person from the Community Forest Board, where we should be taking a little more time to look at these things. And if we're gonna take a little more time, we should see their resume, if they have any experience with budgets and numbers and business and other nonprofit groups that they work for. And we should know if they have any criminal history, because we don't want somebody with criminal history dealing with District of Tumbler Ridge finances. I don't.
Councilor Majinski.
I definitely understand where you guys are coming from on these issues and concerns, but ultimately, for the libraries, the head librarians head is on the line for this. And same with the president of the forest board. Those are the ones that it comes down to because they are the ones that have the direction from their board. And there are checks and balances in place for the library, for one, because they have to show their tax returns, they do the SOFI report, they are audited, they do their financials monthly, and that's all open knowledge. So those are all put in place so that we don't have to be concerned where that money's going, because it's all in the public eye to see, and it has to be there for them to be accountable for. Our librarian, she's a professional manager. She's the one that will be held accountable ultimately. And she does do the resumes, and then they get brought to us, and then if it's approved, then they also do the criminal record check. The only thing that doesn't happen is it doesn't come to us as of right now, but it does, they do get it. And they have that choice at that time to say, okay, no, you're not suited because of this on your criminal record check, so it goes on. But as of right now, we've had Caitlin applied this spring, still not on the board because we haven't made a decision on whether she is on the board or not, and she cannot vote. So it's going to harm some of these groups, I think, in the future if we don't make decisions soon and the boards get to a lower number, and it might hinder other people from wanting to join these boards. And that's my only concern here is the difficulty that is to retain volunteers on any board in this community, not just these two that we're concerned about because we have a monetary interest in, but other small groups too are having a hard time retaining people just without criminal record checks and having personal time to themselves and etc. Right? So that's all I have for right now.
Councilor Howland, come.
Okay, first thing is, who on the library board is the head of the library board? You have a head of staff on the library board, or a president of the library board?
Yeah.
And who is that?
Mr. Ernst.
He's the president, and he makes all the calls.
Well,
And then you have,
that's the
Okay.
meetings, yeah.
so everything goes through him. At the end of the day, he's the guy whose head's on the chopping block and they spend too much money.
No, because it goes to the head librarian.
Okay, who's also on the board?
No,
No,
the direction is from the board to
but
the
is
head.
Paula on the board?
She's in those meetings, yes.
Okay. In the meetings as a member of the board or not? Is she a voting member on the board? Yeah, that's the problem. Right? Like, because no offense to the head librarian, but that's the reason why we need to vet these people. This is the reason why we need to make sure that the checks and balances are in place. And that to me could be an issue. Doesn't seem to be at this point, but at some point it could become an issue that the person who gets paid out of it also makes decisions on how much money they come after council for. Plain and simple, right? Yes, it's hard to get volunteers. Minor hockey struggles to get coaches and referees all the time. But unfortunately, Tumbler Ridge Minor Hockey has to follow the rules of BC Hockey and Hockey Canada. And BC Hockey and Hockey Canada mandate that you provide a criminal record check if you're working with children, right? So even though it's tough, and Tumbler Ridge Minor Hockey struggles to get volunteers to make it work, they manage to make it work, but that is not our problem as counselors. That is not their problem as Tumbler Ridge Minor Hockey. We have to watch out for the taxpayers. That should be our problem. Not worrying about if the board has enough volunteers to run. If the board doesn't have enough volunteers to run, guess what? It comes back to the district of Tumbler Ridge and we run. Simple as that.
And
Okay, you go ahead. Oh, wait, you go ahead.
so with the library board and the community forest, they don't have to deal directly with children. So they don't need,
No, they
so
don't.
we have to, if we are going to request criminal record checks on individuals, there has to be a very good reason to. Otherwise, there could be discriminatory implications there through the code of conduct, everything else. So we have to be very careful when we ask for them. There has to be a reason. It can't be just because they're on a board and they're dealing with money.
That is the
Monetary
reason.
value,
That is the reason, Curtis.
but
They're on board and they're dealing with taxpayers' money. And they can't be voted out by the taxpayers. We can be, right? Every election, that's what we're held responsible to.
we also don't provide criminal record checks.
No.
And I get that, and I think that's why I asked for legal on
Yeah.
that, so that's what I was gonna say, and I get Council Kirby up to myself, but that's why I said that, that's why it's nice to have legal opinion from the legal side of our lawyers. Maybe we're barking the wrong tree, and maybe we're not. Like, maybe we're not, like, you say you guys already pulled criminal record checks, who sees them?
The head librarian.
Your employer or the board that's in charge of the employee, because ultimately you guys have an employee, right? The board as a whole is in charge of that employee. That's a question directed to you, I tried to ask you
And
before.
ultimately, it is up to the person that is hiring the individual. And that person that's hiring the individual should not be able to or allowed to disperse criminal record checks on the line, down the line. Because realistically, if the CAO is hiring a staff member, they cannot show that criminal record check onto another head staff member. It's to that individual who requested it, and the individual that goes and gets the criminal record check that's applying for a position gives it to one individual. It cannot from there be passed on to everybody else in, say, in a workplace. So that's my only concern there is if the head librarian gets a criminal record check, is she allowed to actually give it to us? That's where I want to know.
Yeah,
And if that's even in the realm of us allowed to even look at stuff that, and what do we have, what grounds do we have on saying, okay, that person's not suitable for this position? It could have to be something serious on a criminal record check.
And I think that's why we come back from legal areas criminal record checks, but to me, when we're appointing people, they're spending taxpayer dollars. We're accountable, like to me, when I vote in favor of appointing someone to a board, and there's no money involved, then that's fine, but when I'm appointing board members and there's money involved, and then I know you sent the email off and I had a lot of questions for you in your email, that you didn't want to debate in the email, there was no debate, it was actually questions. I mean, you're saying employees, but the board's not employees. The board members are non-employed, they're non-paid, they're board members appointed by council. And then you made a comment, well, they're employees, but they're not.
It's almost under the same premise as an employee, because if you are getting hired or to do a position, it's like, why would we have a board in place then if we are making a decision for the board to hire somebody? We're being counteractive here. So we're doing a decision for a board. Is that, like, why would we be the ones making the decision for our head librarian or the president of the community forest?
Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I think going with the criminal record check is taking it that one step. And I think it's right. Is that if you're working with children, then that is why. I think that if we look at all the groups in town, we're giving grant and aids, or fee for services. So we're the districts, our tax dollars are going out. They're going out to far many more groups than just the library and the community forest, which of course have the bigger budgets. I think that's where doing our due diligence, and you have your liaisons, they're handing in budgets that we look at the end of the year, their 5-year plans, that we have to be on top of that, and staff is on top of it, and that's how it works. I think that the more, adding to these criminal record checks is going that one step too far. It's hard enough to find board members right now, and I think that if, we do our jobs and staff does their jobs and boards do their jobs, then we should be on the right track. Myself. Council does not hire the boards. Like, does this council hire Miss Paula and Duncan? It's where the board's hiring them. Like, it's just the whole way it works. It's not easy. But I think making sure, I like that we have to be on top of where our tax dollars are going. And I don't know if putting these kind of policies in place is going to watch that. I think you just have to be on top of it. You have to have the right people as liaison, feeding back. Boards have to be on, trusting your boards. I think I trust people. That's maybe a downfall, but that's the benefit of the doubt than going to all these extremes.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a downfall. I think that's why you get legal. Like maybe legal say that's, I think that's what happens is people get involved. Sometimes we get involved we're not supposed to. And maybe that's why, like I said, you could be right, Councilor Jens could be right on the money, and that's to me why you get staff to go back and get legal advice and bring it back to council, and then we know going forward. I don't think it's a bad idea. Councilor Lehman.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And that's what I was just going to say. I think we could be batting this around all night. I think until we get legal opinion, we wait till that comes back and then we'll deal with it.
Okay, with council? So you wanna get Counselor over here, just? One thing, Joe.
One more question here. So
You can go get him.
why would he have to recuse himself?
He spoke up monetary because he's an employee of the library.
But this doesn't have to do with, this has to do with the board, and the
If-
board doesn't employ
If
him.
he feels that he's in a conflict, it's his right to, it's not up to us. That's up to him. That's up to each individual that sits on this council. If you think you're in a conflict, then you speak up and leave. If you don't think you're in a conflict, you don't have to. He felt that, that's why he left. So, I guess that's a personal decision made by Councilmember.
No.
Another discussion item is 8.2, it's relevance of membership regarding NCLGA, the UBCM, and the FCM. I don't have a whole bunch of details, so I did get a bit of information. So my understanding is the Peace Regional District has sent us back to all accounts through the chair, so through Mayor Bertrand. Sounds to me like the PRD wants to come out of all of it, and they're asking for all the other municipalities that sit on the PRD to support it and also come off the NCLGA membership, UBCM membership, and the FCM. Is that correct, Mr. Orville?
That is correct.
So I guess it's for discussion around council, what our opinion is if we want to stay, be membership with NCLGA, the UBCM, the FCM, or support the Peace Regional District Board. Like I said, I mean, this is something obviously Mayor Bertrand would have more information on, but that was the information I got from Mr. Orville. I got Councillor Noberry, then Councillor Howe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I reached out to staff to find out what our actual cost for membership is to these organizations. It's $2,100 for us to be membership between these two organizations. UBCM is free, so I don't know why we would withdraw from UBCM. I mean, we're going for a $1 million grant through UBCM, I believe, for the childcare building. So I would assume that if they're going through a list of people applying for these grants, well, Tumbler Ridge isn't a member. Well, maybe they'd slide down one or two. I don't see a potential loss there. And from my understanding, being members of these organizations, we do get benefits and discounts that we would potentially lose out on. So I don't see, for the risk, for the cost versus reward, the cost is very little and we're getting rewarded, and being parts of these organizations, it gives them money to continue to do what they do for us, and I see the benefit of these organizations.
Anything else from council? I know Councillor Howe had a question there, so. Councillor Kirby?
Yeah, Mayor, I think it's important to be involved. I'm not sure if this is, do we support the regional district dropping out and they want us to follow suit? I don't understand that part. If the regional district wants to bow out, I can support that if that's the way they want to go, but I don't, for a municipality like ourselves to come out, I think that's where you network, that's where you're working together in better communities. Like, we haven't put forth too many resolutions in the last 2 years, but there's benefits to having a voice on there, and especially with being in the north, like NCLGA. I don't see the point in withdrawing from any of them as well.
I got Councillor Howe and then Councillor. Sorry, you're getting. Yeah, so I feel the same way, but my understanding, I did talk to Mayor Bertrand a bit, and that was during our minister meetings there after the fact, before them. He was mentioning, I'm like, if the PRD wants to get rid of their memberships, I think that's good, but I mean, that's up to them. But I think they're looking for all the municipalities to support it by doing the same thing, but I don't know why we would do that. So, do we need a motion or we're good? Okay. Any more discussion about that? So let's move on. Question and answer period. Nobody in the gallery. Nothing from to staff from that. Okay. Resolution closed. Take the recommendation. Councillor Kirby.
That the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with Community Charter Section 91C as follows. See labor relations or other employee relations.
Seconder. Councillor Noberry. All in favor? Okay. 5-minute recess just for legal count. No, it takes, it's good down.